Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, Quality Excellence in 2026, Navigating Critical Trends in Pharma and Medical Device Quality Management, sponsored by MasterControl. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief for Quality Digest, and your host for today's webinar. The rules of quality management are being rewritten, and 2026 is the deadline. With FDA warning letters up 41%, and multiple critical regulations going into full enforcement, quality leaders in pharmaceutical and medical device industries must evolve their quality systems now or risk falling behind in an inspection anytime reality. So in today's webinar, we'll look at some critical trends reshaping quality management across life sciences, including why artificial intelligence has moved from experimentation to regulatory expectation, how the FDA's finalized computer software assurance guideline is transforming validation from documentation exercises into risk-based strategic decisions, why remote regulatory assessments have become a permanent FDA oversight tool, creating an always-on inspection environment, and a lot more as well. But before we get started, just a reminder that you can send us questions using the Q&A box. You can find the Q&A button in the bar down there at the bottom of your screen. Just mouse down, you'll see that. Click that and send your questions to us as you think of them. If we don't get to your questions during the webinar, don't worry. All your questions will be sent to our presenters, and they can get to you offline if we don't get to them. A recording of this webinar will be available one day after the webinar. You'll get an email with that information from Quality Digest. Those of you, this is important, who need a certificate of attendance, you must answer the polling question that comes up during this webinar. Okay, let's get started. We have two presenters today. Jessica Madsen, Senior Product Marketing Manager for Quality Excellence Products at MasterControl. Jessica has an extensive marketing career excuse me, spanning nearly 20 years, including leadership, strategy, product marketing, customer marketing, and demand gen. She excels at working across teams to bring products to market and translating tech features to customer benefits that resonate. Also with us today is Jared Lees, VP of Product Marketing at MasterControl, a global product and marketing executive with a background in data science and expertise in digital and customer experience technologies. Jared brings more than 20 years of enterprise software as a service experience to life sciences organizations to drive customer value. Jared is passionate about partnering with customers to turn data and software investments into meaningful business outcomes. And Jared, I believe you are up first. Go ahead.
I am. Thank you, Dirk. It's great to be here today. And as we get started, I just wanted to share a brief background as to with MasterControl and where we're coming from. For over 30 years, MasterControl has been helping companies just like you. Today, more than 1,100 organizations rely on MasterControl for their quality management needs. Whether you're an innovative startup establishing your processes and just getting rolling, or a global organization with household product names, we have you covered. We are genuinely interested in where the industry is headed and how we can partner with you to safely manufacture and deliver products that will improve the lives of people. Just taking a look at where we're going off, as Dirk mentioned at the beginning of 2026, it really will be a pivotal year for quality management and our space that we're in. What we want to do is we'll start off with a little bit about why that is, and then get into some major trends that are impacting both the pharmaceutical and medical device area. Those trends include AI-powered quality management, the shift from CSV to CSA validation, and the new reality of remote regulatory assessments, all of which are currently being regulated now within the industry. We'll also take a look at pharma-specific nuances, particularly around supply chain and global regulatory harmonization, and medical device-specific challenges, including QMSR, the QMSR go-live deadline that is now just a few weeks away, plus the cybersecurity requirements and PCCP frameworks, all for AI-enabled devices. Okay, so why is 2026 going to be a pivotal year? First, there has been, as Dirk mentioned, an increase in enforcement and warnings from the FDA. In 2025, the FDA issued 38 warning letters related to quality system regulations to medical device companies. Prior to that, I mean, that number right there is a 41% increase because the year prior, there was only 27. So we can see this increase and it's starting to ramp up even more. Second, multiple regulations are going into full enforcement. They're either in enforcement now or going to be really, really soon. The QMSR goes live later this year in February, I think on February 2nd. The FDA finalized its computer software assurance guidance, the CSA guidance, in September of last year. So what that means, if you're still doing traditional CSV validation, you're probably already a little behind, or at least need to get that plan in place to move over to those new requirements. Remote regulatory assessments are also now permanent part of the FDA oversight tool. It's not just something that happened back during, a few years back when we all went remote. It is now remote inspections and validation and things are now happening on the regular. And we have AI governance frameworks like the EU AI Act that are actively being enforced. So that's a lot of like technical things happening, a lot happening in the industry, a lot of enforcements and regulations to kind of deal with. And finally, this is the key insight. These aren't isolated. They're all interconnected requirements. Learning these new requirements that are being enforced, now they're being enforced remotely. How do you prepare for how do you prepare your business for this response? It can't be addressed with just disconnected and point solutions. You do need a connected quality ecosystem. So we're moving beyond the need of just digital transformation into this connected system where you can get the data points you need, respond, react, get the insights, and be able to address these to keep your company on track with the quality requirements. The truth is, your next audit could be remote. It could happen with minimal notice, and the inspector will likely have AI-powered analytics tools that can spot patterns in your manufacturing faster than any human ever could. So 2026, there's a lot happening. It's going to be exciting, and with the right tools in place, it'll be successful. Okay, Jess, let me turn it over to you now to kind of get into these overall trends that we're facing in the deeper details.
Great. Thank you, Jared. That was a great introduction. So I'm going to go over these three overall life science trends before, as Jared mentioned, I will be diving into some more industry specific. So first, we are going to start with the trend that is all the rage and what everybody's talking about, which is AI and quality management. AI and quality management is evolving really rapidly. It has for the past few years. For example, just a few years ago, the question that we were hearing a lot is, oh gosh, what if we used AI? Or do you think AI is going to be coming to quality management? What could that look like? And now the question is, hey, we're already trying to use AI. We see use cases where we could see AI being really beneficial. So what now? And all of the data is backing this up. According to ZS Associates, pharma leaders have learned enough with AI to move past experimentation in a lot of cases and are now really focusing on high impact use cases and in some areas seeing up to 20 to 30% ROI. So let's talk about some of the most important aspects for those in life sciences as you learn about using AI and how AI is being regulated. Actually, regulators are both starting to regulate AI and starting to use AI. For example, the FDA's internal generative AI assistant is called Elsa, and it supports reviewers and investigators with all kinds of things like summarization, investigation assistance, prioritization, and it's really showcasing that oversight teams are going to increasingly be AI enabled. In fact, just in the past few weeks, the FDA made another series of announcements announcing even more agentic capabilities internally. So they are not stopping with Elsa. They continue to move towards an AI-enabled future. And so the real question with that is, how is that going to be most impactful to your quality management departments and your teams? As I mentioned, one of the main uses, the current FDA AI initiatives is to summarize adverse events and review documentation and choose which facilities to inspect based on that. So if your house is not in order per se, then they are trying to find you sooner and get that resolved faster. And then moving on to how regulators are going to from how they're using AI to how they expect you to be using AI and how they're going to watch how you are using AI. Um, for the most part, right now, the EU is ahead of the FDA in outlining specific regulations regarding the use of AI. But the general intent of both the FDA and everybody else all tends to align. So, for example, everybody is stressing governance, data quality, transparency, and validation based on risk. So basically, if the AI that you are using influences any quality decisions, you need to treat that as you would any other critical system. The EU AI Act is now in force with certain regulations, and it has additional staged regulations moving into the rest of this year and 2027. So, how are you expected to actually govern AI in your organization? And really, the overall theme that we are seeing is this idea of human in the loop. So, first, you really want to make sure that you are defining and approving your use cases and where you are approving the use of AI. Um, you want to identify really specific and auditable AI applications that are going to help your teams boost efficiency. And you really want to start in non-critical processes first. Don't try to implement AI everywhere all at once. Start with areas where are going to be really high impact but low risk. And we're going to talk about some of those, like doc summarization, training content generation, data analysis support, that can be done faster than really any human could do it, looking for trends. And then also, you want to set up specific frameworks. So, for example, you want to look at updating your standard operating procedures for AI governance. You want to create clear guidelines for when AI can be used, when an expert needs to review the response, who can sign off on something that has been AI assisted, and what happens if there's an exception and you override AI. That should be a completely reasonable thing to do. But all of your SOPs need to explicitly address that because inspectors will be looking for how you are planning to use AI. So, if you are like many of the people that we talk to, you have likely already been tasked with making AI a priority and this feeling of missing out if you're not. These stats are not specific to life sciences, but they do give a good idea on how the overall landscape is thinking of AI based on research from the Boston Consulting Group. So you can see here that 93% of executives are planning to use AI as an instrument of cost reduction, and they're planning to do that mostly through efficiency gains. So they are hoping to see about 40% of efficiency gains based on using these generative AI tools. So although you may not need to, try and keep up with these stats, this is really what overall the business industry is looking at in order to extract value from AI. But there is really a lot of room here for people to rise to the occasion and become leaders. So adoption is really still in the early stages, as you can see here. Again, this is from Boston Consulting Group. These stats are about a year old. So as we know, AI is moving very quickly. So some of these are probably, have changed since then. But we can really see overall patterns where companies are looking at they know they need to adopt AI. They're testing things out. They're really trying to make sure that they do it right, but they really haven't yet gotten everybody on board. And I think that's really where you can see a lot of value for being a leader in this area. So looking at some of the options of what people can really do with AI, this is a really quick look at some of the current ways that we have been seeing customers start using AI, and showing what it really means in practice and using real practical features that increase efficiency and performance, make life easier, but really key here is really have human in the loop built in and provide value in a really low risk way. So for example, exam generator, automatically create training exams based on your documents. Doc translator and doc summarizer, make it really fast and easy to share and digest critical content across your organization. training slippage predictor, using data from the past to predict if people are going to be late on their training and what that means for how you're trying to remain compliant. And then looking at how it can help with regulatory, meaning understanding regulations, being able to chat with those regulations, understanding the details, and looking at your SOPs and getting an idea of, are these really meeting the regulations that we have? How could they be improved? And what do we feel about those suggestions? Again, the really key there is that human in the loop, making sure that the human is deciding what is really making it into final decision making. So with that, we are and you'll kind of see a thread of AI through a lot of these, but now we are going to move on to CSV to CSA validation. Just a few months ago, in September of 2025, the FDA finalized its guidance on computer software assurance and moving that into computer software validation. The old model was characterized by massive documentation. Um, Packages, exhaustive test scripts. I'm sure all of you have gone through all of the testing needed for validation and doing a validate everything mentality. And the compliance burden of that was truly enormous. But with the FDA, they are really elevating this to a more risk-based approach and emphasizing the fit for intended use and moving away from that exhaustive and prescriptive CSV validation methodology. And this is really a key shift change that we're seeing through a lot of different areas, is this idea of really focusing on risk-based view, even of what I just talked about AI, where they're really focusing on where is the risk. So regulatory compliance is obviously an essential component of life sciences. And so the industry is really shifting more towards compliance by design in order to bake in some of that view of risk-based. Um, it emphasizes critical thinking over just pure documentation. So you can expect auditors to say, what was your risk-based rationale for, these assurance activities that you chose? And you and your teams want to be able to really confidently explain and defend why you validated certain functions really intensively, why others were done more lightly, and how that impacted patient safety and product quality based on risk. So, to make this really a better, easier, more universal process, the key here is to rely on vendor validation and vendor documentation. Your vendor should be providing you with really strong materials that are aligned with these validation principles and provide you with things like risk assessments for core system functions and template guidance and places where that are more high risk based on your industry so that you can test those features more, like audit trails and electronic signatures. And you should be really thinking of your vendor as a compliance partner and really setting you up for success there. So, for example, MasterControl has patented validation tools that we provide to our customers. For example, we have what we call the Validation Excellence Tool, and at its heart, it is a risk-based approach, and it allows people to test really where their specific risks are, any changes that they have made to the system, and really rely on testing that we have done in-house to make sure that they don't have to do exhaustive testing. For our customers who are doing software upgrades, the average validation time we have seen is under 45 minutes, and we have not had any customers have any type of citations based on validation. Another benefit of this approach is it really tips the scale in the favor of adopting new features. So it allows your team to move a lot more quickly in adopting those new features because the validation process is much more streamlined. And it really is, instead of, oh gosh, we're going to have to do exhaustive validation testing. And so we are going to wait, not take advantage of those features and just do everything at once, maybe once, a year. You can really take features as often as your vendor is providing them to you because the validation burden is so light, which really, if you have things like AI tools, you want to be able to take those things faster and start benefiting from that efficiency. Both Dirk and Jared mentioned the idea of RRAs, and so I am going to dive into that a little bit deeper right now. Our third common trend is one that really fundamentally changes how you think about timing of being inspected, and that is remote regulatory assessments. The FDA's RRA guidance really normalizes this idea of remote evaluations. They became very popular, obviously, a few years ago when everybody was doing everything remote due to COVID. And we really learned that, hey, some of these inspections can be done remotely and it saves everybody time. And it's a really great way to, quote unquote, make sure that people are prepared at any time. Um, and so now those are becoming more codified with the FDA's recent guidance and really becoming more of a everyday thing and everyday expected thing, no longer just something that is an artifact of COVID. So an FDA request for that remote access to your quality records or for a virtual facility tour can really arrive with minimal notice. So you can expect faster document requests, looking for more supplier participation during those inspections based on, being everything being digital and really even with what I mentioned before with AI, um, they can go through your documentation really quickly and decide that they want to do a remote audit. The line between saying like, oh, we have an inspection coming up, or gosh, we really should be inspection ready and being ready for an RRA has completely disappeared. You really have to ensure that your digital records are well organized, accessible, and ready for inspection truly at any time. And in order to accomplish that, you really need to have a robust digital infrastructure where these records aren't just stored, but easily searchable and securely shareable. And let's be real, you really want to have secure digital infrastructure anyway, if you want to take advantage of any of these trends that we're talking about today. So some of the tips that you probably want to be thinking of as we move into this RRA reality is a virtual audit room. Um, this really is also becoming standard infrastructure, and this is a secure digital environment where you can provide auditors with controlled access to relevant documentation at any time without giving them access to everything in your system. You really want to make preparedness an embedded part of your quality processes and part of your quality, world. You want to make sure that you have procedures that handle how these audits should be done just as part of your SOPs and trained for all of your employees and tracked through your QMS. You want to be prepared as you would for anything else. And you also want to make sure that everything is connected. So, should you, heaven forbid, have any findings, you want to be able to link those findings to CAPAs and have those managed through your quality event process lifecycle as you would with any type of quality event and with a full audit trail to demonstrate that closure, as those will likely be followed up on, and you need to be able to easily and digitally show proof of everything that you went through to resolve any findings. So those were the main overall trends that impact every industry. And now I'm going to spend some time diving a little bit into pharma and then a little bit into med device. Um, because even here, there is a little bit of overlap. Regulatory harmonization is happening in both industries, but obviously, because they have different regulations based on the industry, we're going to dive into them separately. First, we're going to start with pharma. For those of you in pharmaceutical manufacturing, there's two additional trends that you need to think about mastering, and that is supply chain quality and regulatory harmonization. So we are going to start with supply chain. And this is the part of the presentation where we start to get into some acronyms. So the Drug Supply Chain Security Act, the DSCSA, is now in full enforcement. You will need to demonstrate control from supplier to patient, and that is going to require several connected capabilities. First, you're going to need robust and repeatable tech transfer processes. So when formulations or processes change or move between different sites or between different supplier partnerships, that quality cannot be lost in translation. Second, you also need connections between your supplier deviations and your internal quality systems. Third, you also need to maintain a DSCSA evidence pack. So that includes verification proof, authorized trading partner evidence, investigation records, and just like we talked about with RRAs, all of that needs to be readily accessible in your document management system for auditors. So throughout all of this process, document and change control becomes really, really critical. And you need to eliminate any uncontrolled copies and ensure that all of your supply chain partners are always working from current approved version of specifications and procedures, because all of this is now in full enforcement, and anything that is found during an audit um, is really expected to be timely resolved. A little note here also, the 2026 Pharma Supply Chain and Security World Conference is literally themed building a connected and resilient supply chain ecosystem. So this is what regulators are expecting to see. This is what they care about, and this is what you need to ensure you have in your digital systems. Moving on to regulatory harmonization, we are seeing a continued trend in harmonization across the globe and global alignment. This is no longer optional. There is ongoing convergence happening, and I am going to list off all of these parties. I'm sure that you've heard of them: the International Council for Harmonization, the International Pharmaceutical Regulators Program, the Pharmaceutical Inspection Cooperation Scheme, the International Coalition of Medicines and Regulatory Authorities. You are likely very familiar with all of these acronyms representing all of those bodies, and you've likely been keeping watch on exactly what they're doing, how they're aligning, and how that impacts you and your teams by having really consistent global quality processes. By closing these gaps, regulators themselves are moving towards reduced regional divergence, and they expect you to do so as well. Ideally, this will provide really predictable expectations for all of your audits across the globe, reduce duplication in your work, thus saving time for your teams, and really giving you a more efficient use of resources. And at the end of the day, the whole reason that we do this, right, is improved quality of products for patients. And there's a few reasons why this matters. Um, Back to risk-based regulatory decisions. That's what all of these are leaning towards, and it really supports a more consistent framework so that you have easier explainability across all of your decisions within your quality landscape. But this means that the alignment creates a much higher expectation for consistency and consistency across all of those processes, and looking at all of the different sites and how they are aligning your quality processes. So auditors are going to increasingly expect to see one single source of truth for quality information across all sites, and how you are tracking and aligning all of that data across all of sites. So you don't just want to be standardized on paper, you want proof that everything and all of your processes are executed consistently everywhere. Now, of course, there will be some variation based on, there will still be variation based on specific places around the globe and specific regulations. And you can really account for that in your digital system really well. But overarching, you want your processes to be aligned. And by doing that, you can demonstrate that you can monitor and analyze your quality performance across all of your sites, and you're measuring risk and data the same way everywhere. It also helps you be able to manage that data and set your data up for success so that you can use that data for AI down the road. Now we are going to move into medical device manufacturers. 2026 is bringing some critical requirements. So, for example, the QMSR Go Live, cybersecurity and SBOM mandates, and the PCCP frameworks for AI and ML enabled devices. So let's dive in to more global regulatory alignment. So February 2nd, 2026, that is the big day. That is when the FDA's quality management system regulation becomes fully enforceable and replaces quality system regulation, so QSR, and really incorporates that ISO 13485 2016. If you are still just in planning mode, you really need to move into execution mode. This is happening. So, for many companies, particularly people who have been US only device manufacturers, this transition is could be particularly challenging because you need to build entirely new processes, especially around, one of the words of the day, risk management. Uh, this risk management is shifts from being really siloed to a central and integral process that should be touching everything about what you're doing in quality, and that is what inspectors are looking for. So, in order to get ready, you really should have already or be prepared to conduct a comprehensive gap analysis for any existing QSR-based procedures in order to match those fully against the scope of ISO 13485 and any remaining FDA-specific requirements. And another theme of today, documentation. You want to update your QMS and audit plans to remap your quality processes, update your SOPs, retrain personnel, integrate that risk management philosophy, across the board, and really prepare for how you prepare for internal audits to mimic these new ISO-based inspections. And then one more little note, the supplier side is not just a worry of pharma, obviously. You really need to harmonize your supplier agreements and make sure that your suppliers are updated to reflect the new QMSR guidelines and that they also are following everything because you need to also account for what your suppliers are doing. The second medical device specific trend that I'm going to talk about is the shift from cybersecurity being mainly an IT concern to being a core component of quality and regulatory compliance. The FDA has updated guidance, and it is now in effect that you must provide a software bill of materials as a standard requirement for pre-market solutions. And this is really a ingredients list for your software detailing all open source and third-party components. But that alone is just data. You have to also take the next step and provide real value through understanding your vulnerability exploitability exchange document, also called the VEX document. And that is where you are really going to see context and provide context to auditors on whether a known vulnerability in software is actually exploitable in your specific device if it utilizes software. So your quality teams are now responsible for ensuring that this vulnerability management process is integrated into your CAPA process. And there are, in fact, clocks for reporting and action and timelines that you need to meet, just like for how you resolve CAPAs in other areas of your business. And other areas of your quality management. So, really understanding that cybersecurity and not just thinking of it as something that, oh, IT is in charge of that, but no, your quality programs are in charge of that as well if it impacts your device. And then finally, we are going to tie back to our AI discussion. As I mentioned, that really is a thread that goes through everything that we are going to talk about today with trends. And this is with a unique device angle. So, predetermined change control plans for AI and machine learning enabled devices. The FDA finalized this PCCP guidance in late 2024, but it continues to evolve. And this is really a game changer for having and delivering innovative devices quickly and being able to update those devices. So PCCPs create a pre-approved pathway for you to be able to update your AI-enabled devices without needing to do a new submission. This is a really big deal because with how fast and flexible everybody needs to be with technology. I mean, you see it in the way that you're running your quality processes and how you're implementing AI into your teams, and patients are expecting that for your devices as well. Everything needs to be fast and flexible with technology now. And so this is really helping you be able to do that in a way that is compliant. Any deviation from your PCCP will require a new submission. So when you are setting your PCCPs up, you really need to make sure that they are comprehensive and that you have your change control plans bulletproof and your validation plans bulletproof and thoroughly documented. and having that documented and set up front. So this is about having a planned plat, excuse me, a planned pathway for planned innovation. And you need to be able to track that through your entire QMS so that you can showcase it during one of those RRAs. Um, and making sure that you have everything planned for the unique life cycle that an AI or machine learning model in a device really has, and looking at the change control and how that is impacted, the risk management, again, risk management of that device, and how we are currently evolving with updated AI and ML realities. And with that, I am going to move over to Jared, who is going to discuss the importance of data in all of the trends that we talked about today.
Thank you, Jessica. And data is important not just on the trends, but in general, at least to me. What I've learned, and that was a lot of great detail, and we'll have some resources at the end of this presentation to help connect you to more additional ways to help remember and implement some of these things that we're recommending today. But there's really three main things that I'm hearing right out of today in the work that has been presented. One is like digital data AI, like that's great. It helps us be more efficient. It helps us as quality professionals do our jobs better. As a result of these new tools and technology, there's also new regulations and rules that are coming with it and guidance for these technologies that we need to be aware of. And so that's another component that we need to consider. The third factor is the regulators also have access to new tools and technology to help them be more efficient and move quicker. So we need to be ready for that. And the foundation of getting all that together really is having the data in a place that is usable, consumable, and contextual that makes sense for you. If you really want to take advantage and be ready for the audits and take advantage of the benefits of AI, the data needs to be in place. So one of the like a meaningful trend for the near future isn't just about AI. Like AI is kind of big now, but a lot of the hype might have been died off, and now people are looking into how do we actually put this into practice? What are the use cases that I need to help remove some of those tasks and make me more efficient? So all this AI is great, but without trusted data, it's just going to create noise and not insights. You need to have the context, you need to understand where it's coming from, and you need to have consistent reliability with the results, right? Organizations that have rushed into AI pilots without first getting the data in check or in order quickly hit a wall. They aren't able to scale, and they produce results that just aren't trusted or have too much variability in them to take action on. The companies that see value from AI have first established a strong data governance practice. They have that in place to connect their data from the different sources, creating an ecosystem, including data from quality events, batch records, suppliers, and audits. The real work isn't just in chasing the trends or trying to keep up with what's coming next or expecting AI to magically solve your problems. It's building an interoperable governed data ecosystem that will allow analytics and AI to operate responsibly and at scale, especially in GMP environments. MasterControl, we recently were helping with a survey of over 100 life science professionals and quality professionals across the globe. And 77% of them said that they've either already adjusted or plan to overhaul their data strategies to make the most out of the AI. So they know, like, in order to get this adoption and to take advantage of these tools, they need to get the data in place first. Likewise, sorry, that was 77%. I might have said 71. That's okay. 71's for this one. The survey found that 71% of the AI implementation projects are in the pilot phase. So if you think you're behind, you're not. The majority of people out there are still piloting, trying things out, testing things to make sure that it can be rolled out across their organizations. Organizations are cautiously moving forward to ensure the data is in a place where it's transparent, it's contextual, and the people understand how the decisions are being made by AI. As Jessica talked about, we need to be able to have that full traceability back to understand why a decision was made, why a route was taken, and have that contextual information. So as we get near the end of here, just want to explain, like, this is with these trends, this is why MasterControl's approach to data, why we've taken the path that we have. We recognize that we need to have a connected platform for life sciences that bring to part and help you with that connectivity between these various different data sources. to help with like document training, quality events, and even with the manufacturing solutions that we provide to kind of pull all this together through electronic batch records, digital logbooks, and so forth. So MasterControl is helped to kind of pull this together to create a scalable compliance solution for organizations, especially for quality professionals. In fact, we spent the last 30 years just honing the practice directly for these quality individuals. We focus on a secure data capture, right? So that's the importance of going digital. You think about like going analog to digital, that allows you to now get the data into a spot that's able to be used, ported to different ecosystems that need it, and be able to take action on, as well as create a single source of truth and validated systems organizations can trust. While we want to make sure we continue to enable strong connectivity of both across both a platform and broader enterprises, right? You have other systems and suppliers of outside systems. You want to make sure you can connect to these systems, get the information you need, make sure it's secure, transparent, and trusted. This is the foundation in place, and we want to make sure we can help you enable that. For pharma, we provide the digital backbone for resilient supply chains, supporting controlled documentation, automated training, closed loop quality, global standardized processes with regional flexibility. And for medical devices, we help with ISO 13485 and QMSR readiness through integrated risk management, auditability, and end-to-end traceability. In addition to the manufacturing side, there's a component of cybersecurity, as Jessica mentioned, making sure like the software's in a good state. Our advanced quality event management system gives you the flexibility to create processes. So the various findings that you find from many of the acronyms that we've already talked through today, that they're flowed and tracked into your CAPA processes, right? And you have the PCCP documentation that you need in order to address the regulatory needs and remain in compliance. In short, MasterControl, we have a single connected ecosystem that will help you be ready for what's coming in 2026. In addition to that, just talk a little bit about the AI piece. We're also the only QMS that is ISO 42001 certified. This is for the AI certification of ISO standards. There's only about 50 companies in the world that have this. So we just want you to know, like, we're in it with you. We want to make sure we can help you be successful and meet the needs of what's coming your way. Jess, do you want to go ahead and like let's just wrap up. I was able to do the humble brag on AI. Well, let's talk to you about the rest of MasterControl.
Sure, of course. So, MasterControl, we are thrilled to be the life science industry's #1 QMS. We have been doing this for 30 years. We have 30 years of leadership in the industry. We have done a lot of innovation in the industry, from being the first to do 21 CFR Part 11 to some of the patented validation tools that I mentioned. And, with what Jared just talked about with AI and how we are taking a very serious approach to how AI is being used in life sciences, to make sure that it's very specialized for life sciences, very compliant, and very human in the loop. We connect quality manufacturing and asset management because we really believe that there is value in that end of how you manage your products and get those products to patients. And we're just really thrilled to be here today to talk about the trends that are coming, what we're watching. I mean, this is what we do. I watch it every day to make sure that we are aligned with where the industry is going and that we can make sure to help our customers be prepared for all of these trends, take advantage for all of these trends, and move into the future in a way that is compliant and really benefits the patient and the end user in the long run. And that's what we do, and we love it. And I believe, Dirk, now we are going to have a poll.
Yes. So for those of you who need a certificate of attendance, please take a moment and answer this poll question that I've just popped up there. And I'll just leave that up as we get into our Q&A. Right, guys? We're ready for that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, all right. Okay. We're currently using traditional validation testing methods. What's the first step in moving to something more risk-based?
I will take that. So, yes, validation. Everybody that I had talked to in the past is always worried about validation takes so much time, validation is so exhaustive. And that is really what the FDA is trying to solve with their risk-based validation approach. So, you will likely see that in terms of documentation volume, less. In terms of risk assessment and critical thinking and thought being put into what you're testing, far more robust. You need to think a lot about what actually matters to the critical elements of your system and the critical elements of patient safety. So the FDA back a few months ago, September 2025, they finalized their guidance moving towards more risk-based validation, and that is now the expectation. So if you haven't started researching that or you haven't started changing your methods, now is the time and ideally before your next inspection, because auditors are already going to be asking about this. I am most familiar with MasterControl, and so I will use that as my example. I talked a little bit about our VXT tool that provides things like your validation plan, your risk assessment, final summary report. You can download documentation from the testing that we have done when you're a customer. And all of this contains all of that test execution documentation so that you do not have to do it yourself. We have already done that in pre-release activities. We do a lot of that heavy lifting, but then we also help you understand where you should be doing some extra testing. And then you also, of course, human in the loop, should be looking at where you believe your critical elements are to your system and the way that you've implemented, and then may do some additional testing just there. So, really understanding that risk-based approach and speaking to your vendors about how they can support you in that would be your first step if you haven't started moving in that direction already.
So it sounds like the FDA moving towards a risk-based approach is really kind of alignment with everybody who's been working with any ISO quality management system standard is kind of coming in alignment with what people are really doing pretty much now anyway. It sounds like.
Yes, and the FDA, I mean, they had been signaling in this direction for quite some time. We had had customers move, we've had customers moving in this way for years and years and years and years. And really, all the FDA guidance did was say, okay, this is official. I mean, they had had, suggestions and, guidelines out using this methodology for quite some time, but now it's official.
Okay. Um, can you give us some more insight into how to prepare for what auditors will look for with AI use?
Uh, I'm going to take this one as well because guilty. I love AI. I love researching about AI. I've done a ton of research about AI in the quality industry, and work with a lot of people who, really, on our team and at our company who really love this. And so this is really exciting, I think, for the entire industry. And I think the key here still is something that I've mentioned earlier, which is human in the loop controls, especially for life sciences. This is a regulated industry. This is an impactful industry. These are people, that are trusting you to create, trusting these companies to create good products and, trusting us to help keep that quality in line. And so really understanding that human in the loop controls and checking the work. Inspectors, as I mentioned, with like things like ELTA and their agentic capabilities, are using AI, and so they are going to be familiar with the tools themselves, and they are going to be familiar with understanding its capabilities and its limitations. And so they are going to look for that from the people that they're auditing as well. So I'll repeat some of what I said just because I think it is so important. Understanding appropriate use cases, understanding where your organization is comfortable using AI, starting with where you feel it is low risk, understanding the boundaries of that, and having explicit procedures that people are trained on how they can use AI, how they are approving the, output from AI, who is in charge of that sign off, and obviously keeping it low risk. I think another thing that I have had great conversations with customers about is the idea of teaching people who are in quality management, the appropriate use of AI. So don't take a whole bunch of data and dump it into the free version of ChatGPT and tell it to do stuff. No, that is not going to be compliant. Your auditors do not want to see that, and neither does your company. Don't do that. Have approved, safe tools that keep your data secure. Ensure that everything stays on your system. And also, don't let AI unanimously make impactful decisions. Make sure that you're looking at so for example, say you have a very secure AI tool that you are using and you are asking it to, I'm going to use an example, summarize a document. That's easy, that's wonderful. Um, but does the output make sense? Make sure that the output makes sense and that it aligns with, do that double check. AI is incredible. It creates so much efficiency. The double check is still worth it.
So that's what you're talking about, human in the loop, is let the AI take the first pass, but at least now, while AI is still fairly in its infancy, somebody needs to be there to make sure that the output actually makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, you've mentioned, and I should have probably interrupted earlier in the webinar, the FDA is using AI, and I think you mentioned something like called ELSA and so forth.
Yep.
For those people who aren't familiar with how FDA is using AI, can you just kind of briefly describe what they're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the biggest kind of announcement and line item is this ELSA, which is their internal tool for things like it's really an assistant to help the auditors, investigators, etc. And they're using it for a huge span of ways at the agency. So they're looking for it for when they are doing, review of documentation and, approvals. To go through that documentation faster. They're using it to go through documentation to decide which facilities should be inspected. Like,
Hmm.
which, does this company having AI look through all of their documentation, does it seem like it's in order, or does it seem like something might be here? We might want to actually do an inspection. So they're looking to find out who they can for keys on where they are going to possibly find findings. So to inspect people more. Now, does this mean that, they will be having human in the loop as well? We can all
That's the
hope.
question.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so they will be looking at should an auditor, now I haven't experienced this, but let's play it out. Should an auditor come to you and say, oh, it looks, based on your documentation, we've decided to audit you based on, some red flags that AI saw. Does that mean you're automatically getting a finding? No, then you have the opportunity to go through that audit process and talk to the investigator, talk to the auditor, and talk about, why those red flags might have happened and why they are, actually a finding worthy or not. We're still all humans. We're still all here. We still all have conversations. But yes, they are using that to basically generate efficiency, just like everybody else is.
Okay. Yeah, and we know, I mean, the FDA is slammed and they don't have enough
Yep.
auditors to even keep up. So this is kind of a tool to help them focus where they think the issues might be. Yeah. Um, maybe this is a question for Jared. Is there
Sure.
any advantage to being an early adopter of AI, or is it better to still kind of hang back and wait and learn and see what everybody else is doing?
There's, this is an interesting question because the innovative side of me is yes, like get out there, like adopt technology, learn it, see how it can apply to your business and drive success. However, in a regulated space, I mean, there's some warnings and cautions associated with that, and we've all seen that with like some of just AI usage when it first started coming out like a year and a half or so ago, right? My recommendation though is to not just wait, right? Like you can still continue to learn now, and there's steps you can take in place today. And Dirk and Jessica, as you're just talking about, the AI and human in the loop. I like to think of it as like first draft. It produces the first draft only. And so with that, you still need that contextual interaction, and you still need to have the data put together in order to in order to make it meaningful and useful for you. So my recommendation is like there are things you can do today, such as, and we've learned from the stats and some of the surveys out there that everyone's kind of in the same boat right now. There's very few people that are leaders out there. Everyone is kind of in this like adoption alpha stage of piloting and testing things out. I would recommend like one, regardless of AI or not, like you should get your data in order from a connected ecosystem because whether or not you have it, the FDA, other regulators have it, and they're going to look for ways in order to help streamline and and be audit ready. Now, keep in mind, auditing isn't a bad thing. It's just a matter of like, yeah, I'm ready. Look, everything's in compliance. Like we're good to go. Let's keep moving. We continue to manufacture and produce high quality outputs for our customers. So get the data in ready. Look for those connection points. Making partner with the data people at your organization to make sure that you have the questions that you need to get answered or the insights that you need, you know where to go to get the data and information in order to address those. And the second piece is like look for those use cases or procedures that you think can be beneficial for AI. That's where you can learn in the organization, like or in the industry. What are other people doing? What are some of those leaders or those forward thinkers? Like, what are they doing? Learn from their mistakes. What processes have they put set up? What governance have they set up? What literacy or training programs and SOPs have they set up to help their operators and managers and things be ready and use these tools and technologies? Those are all things you can start doing now that don't really need to have a technology implemented or in place. But looking at how will your business change and evolve, knowing that these changes are coming. So, Dirk, to kind of go back to that, like I think there is an advantage to learning to kind of see, and especially in the regulated space, but don't wait and do nothing. There are some things you can do now, like identifying where you think it's best use, where you can reduce some of that tedious task, increase the speed to output for certain decisions and actions that you need to take, and just like increase learning.
From you had a slide earlier on, I think, Jessica, what if, what now, that was showing how companies are various ways that they're using AI. So from what you're seeing from just from your client base, what seems to be the application that people seem to be most comfortable with trying AI out on first, trying to get the hang of it, like generating exams, or do you have a feel for where people are kind of dipping their toe in right now?
We do, and it's really interesting. It's a lot of what, people would do. Like, there's a lot of alignment to like what I do in my job. Um, Summarizing documents, making sure that I understand something quickly. Yes, should you be doing a deep dive? Absolutely. If is it great to also get a quick summarization to remind yourself of things? Absolutely. Um, Translating documents. So being able to, we talk a lot about global alignment. Um, Being able to quickly translate documents and then check to make sure that everything, came out correctly. Doing it in 10 minutes versus doing it in 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours. It's really about that time savings. You mentioned generating exams. So one of the things that we hear a lot is this idea of, oh gosh, like a lot of my training ends up being read and understood because I just don't have the time to generate questions. And it just takes extra time that I don't have and I need to get it out. This is a perfect use case for AI that is really high in time savings and low in risk as long as you're double checking it. Have the AI generate a whole bunch of questions and a whole bunch of answers, one being correct and the rest not being correct. Look at what it gave you, and decide, make sure that it's correct, and then send that out. Regulators love to see beyond read and understood. Like they love to see true training that tests comprehension. And this is a really easy way to do that, as long as you double check that what the AI gave you is correct. And the way that we do it, we also allow you to edit those questions. So if you don't like one of the answers that it came up with as a, wrong answer, change it. But that takes a lot less time and it really takes a lot of that initial blank page burden away of like, okay, what are my questions going to be? I'm just staring at a blank page trying to figure it out. It at least gives you something to start with, which is really great.
Okay.
And Dirk,
And
I would
and
add. Oh, Dirk, if I can just jump in real
Yeah.
quick. Another point is just like reporting and analytics, as we've seen across other industries as
Uh,
well. Just being able to use AI to help identify patterns in your data to kind of move from a reactive or insightful state to a more preventative or predictive state.
okay. And I'll end with this question. Uh, Both of you are in marketing. I'm sure you get a lot of feedback from and questions from your clients. Given that this landscape, the regulatory landscape, is moving so fast, there's AI, there's other changes, harmonization, all this. What kind of concerns or maybe requests for features are you seeing right now, maybe as a result of all this change? Kind of what are clients going, oh my gosh, you guys, you need to give us this, you need to give us that. There just seem to be any trends?
I've been talking a lot,
Yeah.
but I have something to say.
Go ahead,
And,
Jessica.
and Jared can as well. But I'm lucky enough that during our user conference, I get to attend and talk to a lot of our customers and a lot of our clients and even some of our prospects of like, hey, what are we, and people are starting to get excited about the possibilities of things that were really, really difficult before. And there's opportunity there. So I think a few things is we talked a lot today about risk-based. People want to use AI to understand their risk, but really specific to regulations. So, for example, is this SOP compliant? And being able to run that against an AI that is trained on, the 21 CFR and being able to really have it, and again, not to just necessarily take it blankly at face value, but to have it say, like, hey, the way that you worded this could be more compliant, just to give you suggestions. I think that's something that is going to be really valuable, especially as regulations continue to change. So I think looking at just staying aligned with regulations is something where there's a lot of opportunity.
And I would add just a quick add to that is like interoperability is also something that we're seeing. Like, how do you continue to connect to various systems or have those API endpoints? Because that just helps, as Jessica mentioned with the being ready for the regulation, it helps with like transparency and being able to pull in information so you have a more complete view of what's happening at your organization.
Okay. Well, guys, that wraps up today's webinar. Thanks, Jessica, Jared, for a great presentation. That was really a lot of information. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we actually Jessica, I think we have one more slide we can end on real
Oh, there
quick,
we go.
just to give, yeah, just to give people, there's a lot that went through today. Each of these QR codes go to different trend reports, but you're welcome to scan both, just to give you a little bit more information on some of the details that we discussed.
Great. And also, I will also include that information, those links, in an email that will go out about 24 hours from now, attendees. You'll be getting a link to a recording of the webinar, as well as these links again that you can go out and download that information from MasterControl there. And also, if we didn't get to your questions, don't worry. I'll forward them all on to Jessica and Jared, and they can get to you offline. So that is it. So, from all of us here at Quality Digest and Master Control, thanks for joining us, and we will see you at the next webinar. So long.